I'm Veronica Cano. I'm the Scholarly Communications Officer at the College of Arts, Humanities and Social Science. And my colleague Nik here is actually been changed. So her role has changed since that introduction. Nik is Research Information Systems Manager at the University of Edinburgh. So just some contents to start with. So I'm going to talk about the University of Edinburgh and provide an overview first. And then I'll talk about the origins of the research network and the terms of reference. And Nik is going to talk about the working groups in terms of its objectives and its successes. And at the end, we have time to discuss outcomes. So the University of Edinburgh has almost 16,000 staff, out of which 8,264 are academic. The rest are professional services. The university is structured in 3 colleges. So there's Arts, Humanities and Social Science, which is my college, sorry. There's medicine and vet medicine, and there's science and engineering. And underneath those 3 colleges, there's 18 schools and 5 major institutes. So at a university level, peer support is provided by Research Information Systems team. So it's the peer team that Nik here manages. Then college research offices support peer users in terms of profiles and also to comply with all the different open access policies. And then some of the big schools also have dedicated support to help users. So when queries come in, they usually go in first onto a school level, and if they can be solved at that level, then they are escalated to the college, and if they can be solved at a college level, they are escalated at a university level, so to the peer team. So as you can see, there's support at different levels, which means that traditionally there's been different processes and procedures across the university. So the run starts as part of the REF preparations. For those that are not aware of the REF, is the Research Excellence Framework. So it's research assessments that happens in the UK every 7 years. The REF 2 is the section of the REF that looks after the outputs, so the research outputs, and it's kind of like the biggest part of it. So to prepare for the submission and to standardize practices, the REF2 network was created at the university level. The objective of the network was to create guides for administrators and just to coordinate efforts. The network put together people that had similar roles across the university that had never met before, and it forged a lot of collaborations and a lot of friendships. Once we submitted to REF, we developed an exercise of lessons learned, and all the participants of the REF2 network got to feedback on their experiences of the whole process, of the whole REF process. So from that feedback provided, it was quite clear that there was a need for a continuation of the REF2 network, maybe with different objectives, but sort of like with the same solid base. The general comment was that because of the university fragmented structure, there was a need to standardize practices and also improve communication around peer updates and functionalities. So the Research Output Network, or RUN as we call it, it was created on September 2021. It had a revised membership of college, school and institutes, research managers and administrators, all of whom are involved in creating research output records. The RUN meets quarterly and is chaired on a rolling basis by research officers. So I'm one of the co-chairs of the RUN. There's some academic staff also part of the network, and they provide their perspective on all the processes and policies that are implemented across the university. The running of the RUN is overseen by the Super RUN, or it's this steering committee, Super RUN. And we have the final decision on university-wide approaches. It is chaired by the head of library research support, and also has representatives from scholarly communications, research information systems, strategic planning, research offices and colleges. It's quite crowded. The terms of reference, and I'm going to have to read here, is to provide a space and communication channel for the collaborative approach to sharing knowledge and best practices, developing processes, procedures and standards, and resolving issues for the recording, dissemination, reporting, and preservation of research outputs in Pure. So I'm going to pass over to Nik, who's going to talk about the working groups within the RON.
Thank you, Veronica. So hello, everybody. My name is Nik, and I'm part of the UK user group as well. So if you have worked with me, you know I love a good working group, right? This is why I'm talking about working groups now, right? So for the RON, we have working groups because that's the best way to get people engaged, to work together, to get to know each other, to resolve issues, work out processes and procedures. So for the membership of the working groups for the RON, we insist that there has to be at least one member from every college for the working group so that all the colleges have their perspectives represented, right? We also ask all members to join at least one working group, so you can't actually sit in and just listen. If you're a member of the RON, you have to be a member of the working group as well. So it's a working group. People need to be producing something, which is what we want them to do. But we encourage collaborative approach to working. So the working group meets, and then we create maybe subgroups to look at specific topics that we are discussing, and the subgroups work on different aspects as well. So the working groups meet quite regularly, every 2 months sometimes, and depends on the heat of the topic, shall we say it. They might meet once a month as well. So it does require quite a lot of engagement, quite a lot of time and resource on the part of the colleges and schools. But we've been really lucky because people have been willing to participate and give and commit their time and their efforts, really. So I'm going to take you through the working groups that we have very, very quickly, and I'm going to focus on the successes and the objectives and the successes of the groups. So the first was the open access process for academics. So some of you may know that University of Edinburgh launched our new university publications policy recently, where we are stating that the university owns the right on the manuscripts, and we have the right to make the manuscripts available open access on publication. So with this approach, we needed to have some work to develop processes to support this, especially for academics. So the working group met, and we came up with a checklist for academics to comply with the university's publications policy, and we also created an opt-out form for the academics as well. So if they decided not to go with the university's publications policy, they could decide to opt out. So that kind of needed to be worked out, and the working group managed to do that. We then had an open access processes for administrators. So, we had one for academics, and then the next working group was looking at processes for administrators, how they could learn how to do properly the processes and the procedures to make sure that, funders' requirements were complied to. So we created workflow scenarios to different situations for different cases, and how to work through those cases, processes to support those cases, for identifying published outputs. I don't know if this is the case for your institution, but academics, we rely on them to tell us when they've, submitted or had an output published or accepted. Sometimes that doesn't happen, so then we created a process to identify outputs. We've also created email templates so that people didn't have to be, creating stuff on the fly. They could rely on a database of resource or emails to kind of pull through and just use. And then we also, in Pure, for relating outputs to projects, we created a process and some guidance for that as well. So it almost seems like basic stuff, but it actually is quite a lot of processes that you have to work through, and things were being developed at the local level. But if you could do it together, then you could share your experience and your knowledge, and it just improved it for everybody, really. Preprints was the next working group. So this is a working group that I chaired, and there were processes already at the university for managing preprints or working with preprints. But they were devolved, so you had some schools that were using preprints, some schools that didn't. So together, the working group created a paper on preprints for the university. So this is a position paper for the university. And then we created a process for recording preprints in Pure as well, created a web page for public-facing information about how preprints were going to be produced or handled at the university. And then we created guides for recording preprints as well. The Standard Metadata Group is a group that Veronica chairs. So this is something in Pure where people were just putting in different types of metadata. I shan't say it really derogatorily, but it could be a lot of mess that goes into Pure. So we needed to have a standard metadata guides for all the different types of outputs so that people could follow. And then we found this quite useful as well for new staff joining. So if they were new to the Pure, they were new to outputs, they could rely on these guides, go to these guides, and then they would know how to fill out the form or complete the form for the research outputs in Pure. So we have created metadata standards for contribution to journals, chapters in books, contribution to conferences, and the next one they're working on is the non-textual outputs. And then we have the reporting working group as well, and the objective of that was to create a Power BI dashboard to monitor compliance with the funders' open access requirements. Now, we've got a session on this tomorrow. We're both very nervous about it. Come and see it tomorrow. If you're lucky, we might be able to show you a demo. So we're trying to arrange that as well. So that is one of the successes of the reporting working group. And then the last one that has just been the most recent one is the research data management working group. And this is looking at a communication strategy for the university's data management policy and also compiled material for communications. And they're working together with schools and colleges to organize sessions for the policy. So there's a lot of work, but we've been really lucky because we've got colleagues who are really committed, who are interested, who are willing to provide their time and resource into working. So what we've managed to do is to create a network of people who know each other now, because they didn't used to. It was very big. We don't have a campus as well, so there's no chance to meet really. So, but now they know each other. So if they have a question, they can either bring it to the working group or they can just contact each other very quickly, get to know from the other person's knowledge and experience. And that has been really helpful. And we can socialize as well. So we've got social sessions happening so people can get to know each other, get to know their objectives, learn how to align their objectives as well.